I was going to read just a spot if you don't care.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's the end of one of them, and it's like it stands out. Like, it clearly doesn't sound like they're interested in coaching or giving encouraging like critique.
Yeah.
They're done with you from the first sentence of this entire thing.
Yeah.
And this is the last sentence or the last paragraph. It is nothing new to critique earlier trends in historical Jesus research, such as criteria of authenticity, older views of orality studies, treating John as an independent witness, taking polemical and theological texts like Gospels or Acts at face value, etc. This is what historical Jesus researchers do all the time. I can hear the tone, right? In fact, they've done it much more carefully and critiqued much more harshly and aptly than this book has. But they don't jump from finding a flaw in a method or noticing previously unnoticed presumptions or realizing that sections of the Gospels are fabricated all the way to therefore Jesus didn't exist, which is so not tracking what you're saying.
No.
You're not saying, oh, I found a fictional...
It's not my argument. No, they're not correctly describing your
I
argument.
found fictional pericopes, therefore he didn't exist. Like, it's far more elaborate than this.
It's not the argument. It's not in the book. Yeah,
Right.
Right.
Finding flaws in previous Jesus research is not the gotcha this book thinks it is. Our historical evidence for Caesar Augustus, Judah the Maccabee, Queen Salome, Alexandra, Peter, or Beruria are all biased, embellished, imperfect, derivative, trope-laden, and polemical too. This doesn't mean the figures didn't exist. Heck, there are millions of ancient people we don't have any evidence for at all. They too existed. The whole idea of the book is anachronistic at best and anti-Jewish at worst. That's an accusation.
Yes.
Wild.
It is.
Because in order to posit that Jesus didn't exist, it's necessary to be completely ignorant of Second Temple Jewish concerns, apocalyptic Judaism, the Jewish tensions, and ups and downs from the Maccabees to the Herods, all of which make Jesus, A, make perfect sense, so much as B, be almost boring. The effort is wrong-headed and quixotic. Chaotic? Okay, it's like a weird... Okay, and just barking up the wrong tree. And just my comment on that is like, what Miller's comment was, and it's like no one is that heavily mythologized on that level except like usually mythical people. And anyway,
that's especially funny because I have the whole section. This is another new thing that's in the book is I do a Bayesian analysis of the historicity of Apollonius of Tyana, which hits all of these points. Right, I'm explicitly making all the points that they're claiming in that paragraph you just read that I don't make. No, I literally say all that same stuff in there. So like, it's not even a legitimate criticism of the book because the book actually addresses all of that stuff. It says exactly that. But yeah, you can tell the sort of like they're under identity threat. They're like terrified of this result. And they're like doing this sort of like screed, this sort of, it's disconnected from my argumentation because it's not even correctly describing my argumentation. It's misattributing things to me that are not true. And then when they did the anti-Semitic thing, it's like they're saying, because you can't talk about this without, whatever Second Temple stuff. But they don't give an example anywhere in the whole thing. They don't give an example of like what, like I thoroughly center everything within Judaism, like thoroughly, like every chapter I'm like doing, this makes sense within Judaism because, and I give like extensive scholarship and citations and stuff. So there's no way that you could say that I'm ignoring the Jewish context, right? So like if you're saying I'm ignoring, like, is there something about Jewish context that I'm ignoring that changes a conclusion in my book? Tell me what it is, right? Like they never say, they never give an example. They just say this, like, well, you really need to know more about Second Temple Judaism. It's like, do I? Like, can you give me an example? Can you cite a page where there's something that's relevant? And that's the kind of that's really characterizes the whole. Both reviews actually are written like that. They're in that same sort of colloquial shit kicker tone. The same sort of dismissive, like ignoring the actual contents of the book. Claiming it doesn't have things in it that in fact it has, like all of that kind of stuff. It's very, very typical.
And the other reviewer is even more scathing than that review.
Anyway. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's even more, I would say childish, but yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's how Richard and Aaron, what's your take on all of that? Like, am I going too far in my rant there?
I don't think so. In fact, one of the things that Derek had read had reminded me, because when the reviewer was complaining that what you wrote was anti-Jewish, I just pulled out my copy of this book by Niels Peter Lemke about kind of the history of minimalism, Old Testament minimalism. And there's this long quote from Gary Rensburg at Rutgers, so definitely not a nobody in Old Testament studies, but his response to biblical minimalism. I'll just read a few passages that seem a little bit reminiscent.
Please do.
Right.
Some of them, the biblical minimalists, are driven, as I indicated above, by Marxism and leftist politics. Some of them are former evangelical Christians who are now see the evils of their former ways. Some of them are countercultural people left over from the 60s and 70s whose personality includes the questioning and authority of all aspects of their lives. Further along, if not actual Marxism, it's leftist politics in general. If it's not revolution against the sins of one's youth, the sin being once having identified as an evangelical Christian, then the issue is an anti-authority culture in general. Further, I do not hesitate to use these terms. These scholars are driven by anti-Zionism approaching on anti-Semitism. So this is apparently the normal rhetoric that Old Testament scholars use for people who basically say, hey, our methodology is crap. We shouldn't just believe everything the Bible says. We should have primary sources to understand secondary sources. And this is apparently anti-Semitic.
Right.
If you take a very highly critical view, you question pericope, you question narrative because it is a Jewish, it has obviously Jewish roots. Gospel material, at least, is centered with Jewish, if you will, ideal. Okay, because you could say there's a lot of Greco-Roman influence.
Sure.
But like, if you just deny it happened, in a sense, you hate Jews, or you, and if you do that with the history of Jewish people. And it's kind of weird. Like, when did we should start like coining a fictive term for haters of haters of Hellenes and others, because we now realize Zeus didn't exist. We accept Heracles as fiction and fabulous, but so did the ancient authors.
Anti-Hellenic.
I know.
Yeah.
I think also it just shows that, these were below the belt, just seriously unprofessional treatments of your work, Richard. And I've written I've written some things in my past. And so I know the kind of work that goes into that was non-trivial, hundreds of pages. And you've got somebody there that's not even clear that they read it entirely. And they're just vomiting onto the keyboard, all sorts of insulting and, fallacious and incendiary kind of, it's just inappropriate on every sentence almost.
Yeah.
And and there were a few things there where it felt like, okay, maybe that could be helpful advice, but they're almost trying to feign like professionalism for just a second here or there, but then they can't help themselves and they just plunge back into stupidity. And if the publisher's listening to this, I suggest you get new reviewers, people that I don't know if they exist out there that can handle the kind of scholarship that's coming, but you need professionalism, truly academic, secular thinkers that are out there that have the ability to work through this kind of literature and this kind of theoretical work without getting unhinged inside over it. And in this kind of it's just really adolescent. But one of the things I would say to our listeners, some people kind of wonder how things got to where they're at. Well, I would just want to point out the obvious here that we're dealing with, we don't have anyone in Roman antiquity that's a historical figure that is so thoroughly and consistently and extensively mythological in his treatment. And so where does that put us if we're rational adults looking at this? Yeah, I would expect there to be a range of treatments that would happily include what Richard's bringing, and that this would be right smack dab in the middle of secular mainstream work in this topic if it were a healthy, appropriate discourse, if it were the West handling its own sacred traditions with intellectual honesty. And so this is exactly what should be being published, this kind of work, and that he is constantly up against these kind of, hurricane of crap as he's trying to bring forward his best scholarship into these topics. And he's doing the honest work that's not beholden to the herd and the status quo and the different forces that are out there that are that up to this point have governed this discussion. And so he deserves our support.